Welcome back to Right Think. I haven't been here for a long while, but I've got a fantastic guest on today who is Sean Turner, who I know very well because he is the Heritage Party Kent Co-ordinator and also a parish councillor in Kent. And he's standing to be elected to the Borough Council where he is later this week. So it's really, really good to have you on again, Sean, particularly in this week where you are being very active in politics as we go on. Welcome to the show, Sean. How are you doing, by the way?
Yeah, thank you for a lovely welcome. It's another beautiful sunny Monday morning, and I'm doing well, actually. I mean, there's a lot going on, but
yeah,
just trying to dip my toes into everything. And when this by-election come along, it's just such a great opportunity to get the party's name out there, and also just to challenge the Uniparty. I mean, there's 15 candidates that have stood in this one. It's a really important situation.
So which council is this for?
So Maidstone Borough Council, where I live, there is a Green and Lib Dem majority within the council, but there is also quite a large number of Conservatives and Independents on the other side, but it's down to one councillor.
Right.
That if one side loses one, essentially, it will change the dynamic of who leads the council.
Yeah.
And so I know we talk about the Uniparty all the time, but since the Green and Lib Dems have got in, it's just, the whole social justice.
Exactly, it's the Uniparty, but they're the worst end of the Uniparty, aren't they? I mean,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I look at it like they're all as bad as each other. Essentially, they're all going to take us to the same destination. But the Greens are especially crazy. So if they get anywhere near power, it's just complete. It's a complete disaster, isn't it? So
yeah, totally.
I wish you the very best in getting on. And I think you've got a good chance because this is a seat where there are 3 seats in one ward up for grabs at the same time. Now, you sent me this here. This is an article about one of the councillors that has quit. So husband and wife team, Tom and Janetta Sams, had been opposed to Maidstone Council's plans for a 5,000 garden village at Lenham Heath from its inception 5 years ago. Those 2 borough councillors have resigned over the plans for the garden village in the area. So 2 councillors, and I believe another one, have resigned all at once in one ward. That's a very, very unusual occurrence. Can you say a bit more about why that is?
So them husband and wife councillors, they sit on the side of the Green and the Lib Dems. They're classed as independents, but we know what independents are like. They always lean on a party, don't they, for policy. Yeah. And then there's a third councillor who was actually the finance director within the cabinet, Councillor Cox, and she's decided to throw the towel in as well. And then all 3 of them live in that ward, and they've just had enough of this garden settlement proposal, and I think they're just showing their cards by dropping out of the council. So maybe they've tried to challenge it internally, and this is the way to do it, is publicly, I guess, because it's going to cause disruption. This is the point.
Maybe this is a big thing where you are in your ward. So your ward, what is it? Lenham? Is it?
Yeah, I don't actually live in the ward. I'm the neighbouring ward to it. But the point is I looked at, I come on 2 years ago and started to talk to you about this before, and at the time it was still erupting, and now it's got to the point where I don't know if we've got the other slide there, but £8 million has been spent already on planning this. That's the BBC there.
And so this is without anything actually being built?
Exactly.
Wow, what a waste of money. I mean, when I was on the London Assembly, we were, for the whole time, we were inquiring into this thing called the Garden Bridge that Boris Johnson wanted to build across the Thames. And they spent £40 million and not a brick was laid. It sounds like another, scam that somebody is making a load of money from management consultancy fees or whatever. And they haven't even built, the foundations of one house, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, originally it was voted through by the previous administration, the Conservative administration. It's been part of the local plan. This is a supplementary planning document that's part of the local plan, and I suppose it's a way of them hitting their national housing targets by doing a big settlement in one hit. But we obviously know through our knowledge that behind the scenes of this, they're also trying to create new communities that are free from transport, cut off and secure. Well, not secure for the people that are there, but, you know, they're using technology to keep an eye on everyone, essentially. I mean, we know them as 15-minute cities, of course, but a garden settlement is, of course, a lovely sort of clean, green way of it, you know, of selling it, I guess, isn't it? Who wouldn't want to live in a garden settlement?
It sounds nice, doesn't it? But it's horrendous because, you know, there's thousands. I think, is it 5,000 homes they want to build in this ward? So your ward is Harrietson, Lenham and North Downs ward. I mean, the North Downs are beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the country. And then they want to just turn up, rock up with the bulldozers and build 5,000 homes in the middle of the countryside. I mean, it's not anything like a garden. It's horrendous. And they're doing this all over the country. I think wherever anyone is in the country, every county, every district, every borough, you can see mass developments going up. I mean, all of a sudden, they've just started in the last 5 years and they're continuing on. And it's just a disaster for the countryside. And, you know, you mentioned there, this is part of the national policy. It's coming from the very top, but they're trying to impose these targets on every borough to build all these homes. And, you know, how do local people feel about having a mass development of 5,000 homes just plonked on their doorstep?
Well, it's very controversial, of course. They don't want it in the village. Lenham is a very historical, you know, heritage village with beautiful homes, beautiful little town centre like High Street, you know. And when I get round to talking to people, nobody wants it. Of course, they don't want it. And the quality of the housing isn't ever going to be as nice as the classic. No. You know, and this obviously leads us into the environment and the climate as well. And funnily enough, I noticed, because Angela Rayner, of course, announced the big 1.5 million homes, didn't she? And she's now been ejected. That's probably another story. But Steve Reed has now come in as the housing minister. And it's quite embarrassing. I don't know if I sent it to your next this morning, but he's signing red caps saying "build, baby, build" on them. You know, and I just think, you know, I probably won't get into the Trump thing, but this whole, you know, they're turning it into a theatre circus when really they're just demolishing the environment and the whole country. I mean, you know, go on.
We do not need 1.5 million new homes in the UK. I mean, I think, you know, what I've been saying for a long time, the country is full. They're creating a housing crisis because of the migration crisis. You know, there's net immigration of 740,000 a year. And that's the latest figures we've got up to for the year to June 2024. And if that continues, they're going to keep on pushing the demand for homes. But it's not going to go to local people. This is not local people who need this. And even you know, Angela Rayner, when she was in herself, admitted that 5 out of 7 of these new homes that they want to build are going to go to migrants coming into the country. So this is nothing to do with meeting the demands of local people and their needs, as far as I can see.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I obviously look at everything on a more local level. I do try and follow the national policy, but it's more that they've got this vision rather than an actual need. So if I just read out from the NPPF, which is the National Policy Planning Policy Framework, this is kind of the guidance, and I'm going to make that word louder, guidance. This isn't in law. This is just a target, really. So section 61 says the overall aim should be to meet an area's identified housing need. So, you know, the council should be identifying who needs the homes and then building them. But by following national targets, we're just looking at either ONS figures. We're not taking into consideration the council also have resettlement schemes. And from the freedom information requests that we've put out, they don't actually record the data of people that have lived in the area for the last 5 years or worked in the area for the last 5 years. And it would seem that with the resettlement schemes, people that arrive in, however they're arriving, and not been here for quite a long time, this could be people from outside the area. It doesn't have to be people from another country. They seem to be getting the priority. And so they're turning a law-based planning and policy framework into something that's political. So and
it's always very interesting, because you talk about identified need, and I imagine the identified needs of the local community for housing are very, very low.
Of course, yes.
But then if you add on these resettlement schemes, I know that there's a resettlement scheme from Afghanistan, another one from Ukraine, another one from Hong Kong, and then there's a general global resettlement, people coming from everywhere. But that's not an identified need of the local community, as far as I can see.
And let's just really identify how the resettlement scheme works, because we haven't really talked about NGOs yet. Non-governmental organisations, this is a money pot for them, and we get televised on the TV, we see the boats, there's all this theatre happening, but really beneath that, there's all this going on behind the scenes where the NGOs are facilitating this, because it's so horrible to think about it, but it's always coming down to finance, isn't it? And it's a money pot for them. And as you said at the start, £8 million has been spent already and nothing's been built.
Right.
So there's going to be consultancy firms, NGOs, just all the bottom feeders,
It's a scam. A lot of these things are a scam, as well as things which are going to be destructive to the environment, which comes onto the whole climate agenda thing, the whole net zero agenda. And I know you are very interested in, as I was, in Trump the other day. Not everyone agrees with everything Trump says, but he's very good on this. I mean, he says he criticized the UN, the NATO, and the climate hoax. He actually said the president of the United States says the climate alarmism, the net zero thing, is actually a hoax. What are your thoughts on that?
I find this really interesting, actually, because that piece of news didn't come to me first. Something come to me from the Kent County Council, and hopefully you might have a slide or video to coincide with that. But then looking at it further, I've looked at the bank's response. Now, Barclays and HSBC are two major banks. Oh, yeah, there we go. Look, setback for climate transition. So they're part of the NZBA there. So it's like a banking alliance. And they're pulling out of the green initiatives. So like we just said before, it's never been about the environment. It's always been about finance. So
what is this? Is the banks are no longer able to make money out of it, so they're pulling out? Is that what's going on?
Well, I mean, you probably put the words in my mouth there, but I don't really know what's going on. But all we can feel is what comes down through the council. I don't know what you've got there from KCC. Maybe
this is something interesting. This is from KCC where someone mentions they're going to reframe the whole ideology of climate alarmism. I'll just play this. Yeah.
If you're in Herne Bay, you look out to the ocean and you see a wind farm. You look inland and you see solar farms. But you look in the high street and you see businesses closing. Right? This is the reality. We were promised prosperity and sustainability. And instead, what we're seeing is hardship. That is the reality of what we're dealing with. So I say this not to abandon our environmental responsibilities, but to reframe them, to ground them in economic reality.
So what are your thoughts on that then, Sean? And who was that?
That's the bit there. His name's Councillor Chamberlain. He's a Reform councillor. They've got a majority at the county council now. Now, if we just retract back a little bit, just to remind viewers from last time, we pushed really hard to avoid the election postponement. And we managed to get the county council to put the election on. And I know a lot of residents, unfortunately, missed out on that opportunity throughout the country. And like what was said at the conference last week, sorry to drop it in, but it was said quite a lot that as a party, we're making tracks, and this causes the establishment issues because we're all about working for the people and also exposing all of the degeneracy that's going on. I mean, things are just terrible. How worse can it get? So sorry to go off piste a little bit there, but I believe that they've been brought in, reform, to control that council. And as he said, he used the term, I think he used reshaping. So it's pretty obvious that the public are catching up with the climate hoax.
Yeah.
So they need to control it. And this is, again, a classic Marxist tactic, isn't it? You've talked about it quite a lot. If they can't deal with it, they just control it, you know?
It's Lenin, isn't it? Lenin says the best way to lead the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves.
Yeah. So that video, he said it there, didn't he? He said it. I don't know how that was prepared, but they're telling you something. And that was a big thing for me, because I sent freedom of information requests a lot of time about the climate emergency, and an interesting one come back and said, no, Kent County Council didn't declare one, we recognised one. And that is really an important word, because what they're basically saying is they just recognise what the UN have to say. They just recognise all the ESG targets. They're just recognising it, and they're just using it for policy. And what that allows them to do is to get all the grants from central government. So I'm sure we'll end up on the devolution agenda soon, but what that's basically doing is it's just transferring all the money and the power locally and creating centralisation at the regional level.
So this is a really big distinction between Reform and the Heritage Party, because people often ask me that question. I'm sure they ask you that question, being a Heritage Party councillor and a candidate, is that in the Heritage Party, we have the principles, and the principle is the whole lot, the whole thing, net zero, climate alarmism, is completely untrue, because carbon dioxide is not a harmful demonic gas. We don't need to reduce carbon dioxide emission levels. But with Reform here, just saying they're going to reframe it in terms of more favourable economics, it still indicates that they buy into the ideology that they need to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and then get money, subsidies to put up solar panels and things like this. Is that the case? Do you see that as the distinction, and is there any more to it than that?
Definitely. I mean, me and you worked on that leaflet. I've got it here. Look, is there a climate emergency? That's completely different to saying we recognise a climate emergency, because what we're saying is we don't believe there is one. Is there one? You know, and why is there another emergency? Why is there another crisis? So, you know, the point within this is it looks as if the framework has already been pushed into the councils. It's already within the policies. So the EV charging, the solar panels, it's already in. So Trump, the banks, KCC councillors can all stand up and say, oh, we're rescinding it now. But it's already been established. So, you know, we talked about this quite a bit, and you said, let's see what happens in the fiscal budgets for next year, and let's see if they actually stick to their word. And I'll be watching very, very closely.
Yeah, because they're very good at actually saying, oh, look, we're doing something that is we're on your side, but then they will still, you know, a few months later, they'll go back and then they'll quietly take the money and continue the agenda. So
totally. I mean, I've been talking to my wife about this over the weekend, and it's really hard for everyday people to see this, but everything is so deceptive. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the latest bill that's coming out of central government. They use terms such as the well-being and schools bill. So they put a nice positive in it and then throw a little negative in with it. And just wherever I go, everything's just so deceptive. And I get the suspicion, I'm very positive actually, that this house of cards is going to fall soon, because they're just tying themselves up in lies.
It is, and people don't want deception, and the people are looking for authenticity, but just people with principles. But there are I think there are groups that are trying to be fake authentic, and that they're fake because they went along with the agenda until a couple of months ago, and then they've suddenly changed their tunes, and they're like now starting to say things that we've been saying for 5 or 10 years, from the very beginning. Sorry,
I was just going to say, just going back to the conference, because I had such a lovely experience on Saturday, that Jason Reardon, when he stood in so many elections in where he's in Bracknell, bless him, and he just said something that melted my heart completely. He said, "I don't want to rule, I want to serve," and that just by saying it now, it gives me goosebumps. Like, this is what we want: a positive society. We don't want deception and lies.
Yeah.
We just want to get on, and most people want to get on with their lives, and I want to get on with my life.
Right.
Yeah. So
it would be, that's it. I feel called into politics because there's such a load of rubbish going on. I need to stand up against it and speak the truth, and you try to open people's eyes to what's going on and provide a better way, and you join the Heritage Party because you think the same way. But, ultimately it would be nicer if we weren't involved in this kind of slime pit of politics and all the people in it who were just in it for themselves and degenerate and whatever. And the politics should be boring. I've said this before. It should be people shouldn't really need to be involved in politics. Government should be small and just allow people to get on with their lives. But we're not in that kind of situation because they're trying to impose massive programs and suck all the wealth and the joy out of the country, and it's dreadful. And another thing, which just to move on, you've just become a parent governor in your school, and the people involved in the Uniparty, they're all of them trying to impose this horrible relationships and sex or sexuality education on very, very young children. What's your experience of being a parent governor? And do you see this kind of stuff in schools, and what are they trying to do to manipulate children's minds in a bad way?
Well, I've got to be honest that the school local to us that my children have attended, it was quite soft in some ways, and I went in quite heavy to start with. And one of the main reasons to become the governor is to just be a part of it. Like, again, like we just said earlier, you mentioned Lenin. I'm not trying to copy but just be a part of it, because the only way you can change things is to positively influence, because the majority of people don't even realize it's going on, or they can't even see it. So we think that they're pushing it, but really they're just ignoring it. They just think it's there has been some changes. I've looked at the RSHE guidance is changing from next year, from 2026. Right. And one of the most positive moves is which I've been really pushing for, is for transparency for parents. Because if you don't tell them or include them, they just think that it's, like a bad thing. They need to know they can ask. And people have been, in some ways, the whole authoritarian system has pushed them away from involvement. And again, you mentioned politics. Politics, you're right, it is boring, and people don't want to get involved in it for that reason, but they need to be a part of it, and we need to be a part of the school community. Something happened recently on a call with my daughter's gone to a senior school now, so straight away I'm ready to communicate with them. And I've got the suspicion that they weren't even aware of this stuff, so I've actually enlightened them. So we need to be a part of it. If we want to change it, we need to be a part of it. So that's really what I'm doing with the governor stuff. And there's a lot to learn, but children need protection, don't they? This is what real safeguarding is. It's
thing is, Sean, you're an inspiration to everybody, really, because I think, over the last few years, you've joined the party, you've become a councillor, now you've become a governor, in your school, and you've really put your money where your mouth is and got involved, and you're actually in a position to be able to influence the decisions for the good. And you know, you're just an ordinary person, but now you've got so much experience from doing it, and you're making a difference. And this is what everybody can do. And you know, what would you say to people who are just looking at what's going on and thinking, oh, what can I do? You know, how can people get involved and change things for the better?
Well, one thing I do say to people, there's quite a lot of anger about, and especially within a lot of like the freedom communities I've mentioned before, they want to fight the system, and what they don't realize is they're actually helping to bring it in. So the agendas, the dark agendas that are coming in, by turning away from it and fighting it, they're actually helping to bring it in. And that doesn't make sense to the average person, because they want to, you know, I hear a lot of talk about we're going to go off grid and we're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, why not make what we've got better? Because they're making it deceptive. They're making it dark. All we need to do is have their bigger numbers to come back into it and just like move the balance back to where it should be. You're giving them a free ride by, you know, some people have gone to the council meetings and shout and scream and swear. They're not going to listen that way. You've got to go in soft. And this is the mistake I made at the start. I could see with the head teacher, she was just, whoa, you know, you're coming in with this heavy stuff. So now it's like, no, actually, I'll come and support. And there's been a few positive things that have happened outside the school that I've dealt with. There's some psychological climate signage put up. I won't get right into it because I haven't sent you the photo for it, but I've managed to get that taken down. And you know, but by communicating with them, and again, like what Jason said about the conference, just small things, but these things really matter, and they help your confidence that you can do something. And I think that would be my message. It doesn't matter how small it is, you can do something. So even if you're writing letters, like, it's enough, you know.
Yes. Well, you writing letters and other people with you changed the course of history in Kent in a way, because they were going to cancel the elections earlier this year, and they didn't. The elections went ahead because of what Heritage Party members have done.
Yeah.
So
I suppose really, the outcome is positive. It doesn't really matter it'd be nice to be out in the spotlight, but maybe we just control it from the back room, you know, like.
We do both, you know, until we're in a position where we gain power. And obviously I want to do that. I want you and other candidates to be successful in getting into positions of power in the councils. But until we do that, we do what we can do, which is we write letters, we put messages out on social media, we campaign, and we do have an impact, which is fantastic. But just, you know, I'll come to the local government reorganization, which this leads us quite nicely onto the devolution agenda. Now, you sent me this video about building trust, which sounds very much like the councillors or people associated with the council are really trying to manipulate people without them realizing. Let's have a listen to this.
We're getting some subject experts in to help us, various different areas that will look at examining trust. Some are from well-known trusted institutions that we looked at, and some others are from different, so, you know, like the fire service or things like that. And we looked at a bit of background on all of them and the topic of trust in general. So trust with central government, trust with local government, trust with information bodies like the NHS, etc., etc. And we are getting a couple of those to come in so that we can further the topic. And
particularly vehement residents, I can send him to be part of building the trust between residents and the local governments, yeah?
No, sorry, subject experts.
This person said trust about 10 times. Who was that? Was that Maidstone Borough Council, and what are they on about?
Well, interestingly enough, the chair there was the head of the Conservatives of the council, and I've got quite a good relationship with her, actually. We've communicated before. But I think this is the point about what I was saying before. She probably believes she's doing a good thing. because the term trust, who's going to argue with the term trust? But what she actually said there is we're going to get experts in. And then that other councillor that I've just started a relationship with, which is good by communicating, corresponding with her, she's very good. She asks a great question. Okay, trust. So shall I send one of my residents to you so you can, who's upset about what's going on, and then you can, bond this trust with him or her? And they was like, no, we want experts. We don't want the public here. So it gets back to the last time I come onto the show with you, the citizens' assemblies. This is where it's manipulated into the answer they want. Why don't they really ask? There's surveys and consultations, and they're all use Delphi technique for you to give the answer they want. Why don't we just get real people in and actually ask them? And if they are upset, that's good, isn't it? Let's try and change it. Because I kind of look at this like service. If you go and have a meal and you pay and you're not happy with something, you talk to the waiter and you work something out. How much council tax do we pay per year? Residents pay. I think they want to be heard, and I think they want to be part of the decision process. So this is all about building trust. As she said, we want someone from the fire service, we want someone from the NHS, all of these institutions that have got all the activism paths within them. You can see where it's going. And I think this also touches on to, you did a really good video about devolution and its connection to town boards. And essentially this trust board is the town board. They are the... So, if we've got a question about the residents or the public, we ask the trust. We ask the trust board, because they give us the answers that we need to continue our policy. But
this is all about imposing the agendas again on local people without really giving them a choice. It's like the illusion of choice, because there's the illusion of allowing them some kind of route to say things, to the illusion of consultation without actually taking any notice of what the consultation says.
Exactly, but then when somebody does question it, it's like, no, but you can't question an expert, can you? This is the point.
Then you're a racist, and you're a homophobe, and you're a transphobe, and whatever. Yeah,
well,
right.
It's just they're selected communities, aren't they? So that there's going to be one in there for DEI. There's going to be one in there for climate. There's going to be one. It's all going to be connected to, because we know there's an agenda. I mean, this is the whole point. So.
That's it. And part of the agenda as well is that's going to help bring it in. What they want to do is this local government reorganization and devolution. Now, you sent me another clip here. I think this is also on Maidstone Borough Council, which is also quite shocking when they're talking about local government reorganization. I'll just play this here.
I wanted to ask about the local government review. I mean, we know that the government is pressuring all local governments to actually create unitary authority. But I'm sorry, but it doesn't sit well in my heart that we haven't had a democratic process on actually agreeing to be part of a unitary authority. And it does feel weird to me that Kent would be split. It's a historical boundary, Kent, and it feels weird for us to be split apart. So, are we going to ever vote on this, please?
So, Councillor, do you wish to answer that question, or do you want to listen to
I thought I was
maybe on the same subject?
I thought I was very clear earlier on. Before a proposal of any sort is formally submitted on behalf of the Borough Council, a formal motion will have to be put to full council.
So this is very interesting. This is going on in all the counties of England, and here's a map. One of three possible options of what they want to do to Kent. And I know that's where you're from, but the same thing is happening in Sussex, Devon, Nottinghamshire, wherever. And you've got, how many districts are there at the moment in Kent? There's like about 11, 12 districts at the moment.
There's 14 districts.
14 districts, and they want to merge them into 3 or 4 super districts. Here's another potential option with 4 super districts this time, and another option is another option for 4 super districts. These are the 3 models on the table. But then they also want to replace the county council, with a county mayor, just a single person like Sadiq Khan, who will have control over all the big things in Kent. So that's what they want to do. And that hasn't had hardly any consultation. So where do things stand at the moment with Kent, and how do the people of Kent feel about having this system imposed on them?
Sorry to... it's 12 districts in Kent. I've just counted them up just to double check. So local government reorganisation is a facilitator for devolution. So this is the first part of the process. Now, the leader has stood up and already said that this is going to cost in the region of £55 million. But nobody's asked for it yet. You know, the ministers can propose it, but they can't impose it. So essentially, they've sent an invitation to the council, and then the council are going to respond with one of these proposals, like you mentioned, the 3 or the 4. Like unitary, this. Like you said in the map there. So there's options there, but no one has got a say in it, because the way that now we look at the history of how things have gone on, the way that our council at the borough works is it works on a cabinet system, and it's called an executive system. So essentially the cabinet, who are the councillors or the main councillors there, they work with the executive, who is like the civil service of the council, and they make a decision between them. Now, I don't know if you've got the other video, but if you haven't, it's okay, because she says that's what's written in the legislation is she says it's for the cabinet executive to make the decision. And he made a boo-boo there. That's the deputy leader, the Lib Dem councillor there, because he was trying to make out that there's a democracy going on here and all the councillors will be involved. But she stands up and says, no, the decision is made by the executive. So I suppose my question is when you're going to ask us if we want, because that £55 million could be put somewhere else, you know, to maybe support a proper emergency or crisis. You know, and what's really great about this video, and the main reason why I've shown it is because I talked about this earlier. The reason why that debate started is because I went in there at the start of the session and asked the question. And that then gave the opportunity for that councillor that questioned it. It gave her the opportunity and a little bit of confidence to think, well, I'm not the only one in this room that's concerned about this. So I'm going to continue that conversation with that councillor, because we've got to the 28th of November, which is the deadline for the proposal. So not too much time now. I've been bringing this subject up at my parish council for 3 years, and I've been sidelined every time. And there's briefings that are coming up early November, because in the briefing, the executive's just going to tell all the parishes, tell all the wards, tell all the ward councillors, this is what you're doing. You know, they probably will do some sort of consultation, but it'd be more like this is what we're doing rather than what would you like us to do. So
they're all very, very biased questions in these consultations, aren't they?
Of course. Yeah. So I've been sidelined from that briefing. I've brought it up at the meeting. I'll find a way of getting into there. And if I can't get into there physically, I'll have to just talk to the councillors. And, you know, because this is the authority problem. We're finding this, I'm involved in a public inquiry at the moment for housing development. And I'm finding that this whole authority, people struggle with the authority thing. Because they're a barrister, just because they're a chair, just because they're an executive, it doesn't mean you can't question them.
Yeah.
You know, in law, everybody's at the same level, aren't they? So,
well, with the Magna Carta, you can go and question and petition the king. You're supposed to be able to do that.
Exactly. So he's just another human being, isn't he? But people have been brought up in this authoritarian, it's very soft in the UK, isn't it? But it's this soft authority. It's getting worse. You know, we can see this by people getting arrested and put in jail for social media posts. It's getting worse. But yeah, the authority is a problem.
Yeah. Well, you make some very good points there. I mean, initially, this local government reorganization was sold to people on the basis that it would save money because you would only have 2-3 councils in Kent rather than 13. That was going to save money. But actually, the reorganization is going to cost money. As you said, £55 million. I'm not sure whether that's for Kent or for the whole country, but it's certainly going to cost money. You know, so it's not going to save any money. So council tax bills are going to go up to facilitate this. And then you're going to have the county mayor as well. There's going to be a whole other office. And, you know, if there's anything like Sadiq Khan in London, he has 10 deputy mayors and a whole civil service of his own of 1,200 people. So, you know, you create a county mayor and they will have hundreds of people working for them, needing hundreds of extra salaries. So heaven knows how much more money that's going to cost. So it's not going to save a penny. It's going to cost people money. So the main argument they had for bringing this in has been blown out of the water with the latest, you know, knowledge from freedom of information requests. So the whole thing should be scrapped, in my view, and we should keep the councils that we have.
And 2 points to come back with on that is one is the county mayor will make the final decision. So any major planning, like the big planning issue that we're dealing with, the 5,000 houses, they will just steamroller in and just take control. So we've lost democracy there. And we also lose democracy because they're abolishing all the district councils as part of this proposal. Yeah. So I won't be able to go there and question them directly. I'll have no direct democracy. I'll just have to put up with. So it's just like the EU, isn't it? I mean, this is the same kind of structure, I guess, where.
Yeah, they want one person in control of everything. Then you know, you can't question one person because they got their agenda and they just do what they want. You know, like Sadiq Khan does in London. It's just democracy's gone, essentially.
It's also interesting reverting back to what we said earlier on about reform, because they've got 2, I think, mayors, haven't they, in the country?
Yeah, Lincolnshire and East Yorkshire, yeah.
And already they're just making decisions that, you know, if they're meant to be for the people and they're, why are they making these big decisions that are very corporate based? You know, it's scary stuff.
Well, one of them, the Andrea Jenkins in Lincolnshire, I mean, she just seems like, you know, a bit of a muppet, to be honest, you know, going on the stage and singing ridiculous songs and pretending she's in the Eurovision Song Contest. I mean, she's just a joke. But the other one, the East Yorkshire one, I can't remember his name, but he said last week that he's all for green energy. So reform came in on the basis that they were against the climate agenda, against net zero, and then they've got someone as their mayor and who's for it. So, you know, I put out a tweet that was a, you know, obvious bait and switch there. So you can't trust them.
Well, I mean, we've already spoke this morning that Kent County Council, the county where I am, they've rescinded their climate recognition. So how can they continue on with green energy if they've rescinded?
Indeed, yeah. Anyway, look, Sean, you've given a really, really good roundup and summary of the things that are happening in Kent, in Maidstone, where you're standing to be elected on Thursday. The wokery, the climate alarmism, the agenda to bring horrible things to children in schools, and the mass immigration, the housing, you know, developments that are going on, wrecking the countryside. And I hope that you will be able to get in there and fight against them and stop them. So I wish you all the very best for your election on Thursday. Is there anything you want to say finally to your particular voters in the ward where you're standing?
Well, just make a choice. I think that's the point. I've just been saying to people, like, look at what the candidates are saying, you know, not just pressured into, you've got to vote for us. I mean, you make the decision. This is democracy. Like, you work it out. And I think already from talking to people, they know that the whole reform thing is, again, they're just a bit unsure. So I don't know, does that push them further away from politics? I guess it does, because they just, we've talked about trust today, but maybe they don't trust them. They don't know who to trust. And I think this is where we come along, and we're just very, you know, normal people that just want to do right for the area. And I hope this comes across to people, because then they will make the right decision and rely on us.
You know, the Heritage Party hasn't changed.
No,
We've had
that's
principles from when we started 5 years ago. We've been going 5 years now, and everyone knows exactly what we stand for. And we continue with our principles, even if they're not popular among the liberal progressive media elite in London, who don't want to talk to us anymore, but they are popular with ordinary people. So that's fantastic. Anyway, Sean, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really good to talk to you, and I hope you get elected onto Maidstone Borough Council later this week.
I'm just going to sign off with this. We have got a Kent Heritage Party YouTube channel, so please, people, search it. There's so much good content on there, and it maybe help you to stand up and have ideas in your own areas.
Excellent. Look at that. Thank you.
Thank
Brilliant, Sean. Good to talk to you, and all the best.